Hello, and welcome to Based on Facts, where fiction and superstition meet logic and scientific facts on WELT 95.7 FM, broadcasting from the Allen County Public Library. My name is Chris Rex, and this week we're going to be doing kind of a review of the year of 2016, because the New Year's event is just around the corner, and we're getting ready to usher in a new year, so we might as well go over some of the things that you may or may not have seen or noticed about the past year. Most notably, I'm going to be starting on the local level, going over some of the things that are kind of near and dear to my heart, closer to biology or zoology, so to speak. And then we'll kind of expand it to include celebrities and such. Okay, just kind of wrap up the last part of the episode. So, what I'd like to start with is a place that's probably about 45 minutes to an hour from here in Fort Wayne. It's called Black Pine Animal Sanctuary. It's just outside of the town of Albion. Town, if you can call it a town. It has one stoplight and Dairy Queen and a high school. 2 gas stations though. So I'll give it that. It does have at least 2 gas stations. But anyway, Black Pine Animal Sanctuary, it's not exactly a zoo. It's more of an animal rescue park kind of thing, to where once they get animals into the park, they tend to stay there for the rest of their lives. And in fact, that's one of their slogans there at Black Pine, is for the rest of their lives. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that slogan later. But if you guys haven't made it out there, it's definitely an interesting place to check out. If you're interested in animals and haven't been out there, that may be something to consider. But I've been out there a couple times. Seems like a very nice place. And the level of intimate interaction that you can get out there at Black Pine is just phenomenal. I've never been at an animal place where you can be so close to the animals. Going to the Fort Wayne Children's Zoo, although it's awesome and wonderful, and we'll talk more about that later, there's still a bit of a disconnect sometimes when it comes to some of those animals, just because you can be so far away from the animal. But Black Pine, it's very intimate experience. When you're literally no more than 4 feet away from a lion, that kind of intimate experience really brings it home for you. At the children's zoo, when you're seeing them through a fence, at that point you're at least 20 feet away. Otherwise, there's a plastic blast shield at one point where you can be right next to the lion theoretically, or next to the tigers, but you have that pure shield in between you. At Black Pine, that's not the case. Okay, you have fences, and you can get literally that close to the animal through a fence. So, absolutely incredible to have that kind of intimate experience with those creatures. But anyway, I really just kind of wanted to go over some of the new additions to these places, Fort Wayne Children's Zoo and the Black Pine Animal Sanctuary. Starting with Black Pine, they have seen a number of new animals this year. Timber is actually a 3-year-old male cougar who just joined Black Pine alongside Joey and Johnny, who are 2 other cougars. We have also had Zoe, a white-nosed Quadrimundi, who joined Bandit, so that they can be together in their cage. The unfortunate thing is that didn't last very long, as far as the timeline is concerned. We had Zoe come in, and shortly thereafter, Bandit actually died. He was failing in health, and so Bandit died out, but coincidentally, not shortly thereafter, we had Cody come in and kind of fill the void that was left over from Bandit. So, still have 2 Coatimundis, but in this case we have Zoe and Cody as opposed to Zoe and Bandit. We also had Joe, a male long-tailed or Java macaque. He actually joined Black Pine this year. We also had a couple deaths. We did have Cujo, a male black rat snake, which I loved and enjoyed every time I went there. He did look like he was a little ragged last time I saw him a few months ago, so it makes sense to me that not shortly thereafter he keeled over. Not surprising to me at all. But he was 22 years old or so, so that's about the age we would expect a colubrid to live in captivity. So it was about his time. Black pine also experienced the death of one of their black bears, a female called Mamie, and she had stomach cancer, and they decided to euthanize her because she was in extraordinary pain. And she was over 22 years old as well. On the bright side, they did see 5 cotton-top tamarins that were added to the park, or added to the sanctuary, I should say. Their names were Annie, Ora, Levi, Eli, and Jonah. So, a couple new additions there. They also had another new addition to make up for the reptile void, so to speak. By losing Cujo, we actually got Iggy, which is a male green iguana, juvenile, who was actually one from the New Haven Canal days. Alright, there was a child who played a carnival game there and ended up winning this baby iguana as a prize, basically. And that kind of practice is a little frowned upon, and fortunately, shortly after Canal Days finished up, we did have the mayor of New Haven come up and say, hey, we can't be having this. We can't be having live animals being given away as prizes. And that's awesome. And that's great, because we have cases like this where the kid brought home the iguana, ended up, oh, well, he wasn't capable of taking care of the iguana, the parents didn't want anything to do with it, so guess what? He got donated to Black Pine. So there we are. We're in a case where we have more animals, and we have homes for the animals, and these kinds of situations, giving out animals as prizes just exacerbates it. So there are always plenty of animals to adopt, so please consider adoption as opposed to getting a baby animal straight from a factory of baby animals. Okay, whether it be a puppy mill or a pet store that sells kittens or puppies. Please try as much as possible to get older animals that actually need a home. Another thing that they happened to get at Black Pine was a collection of 3 tigers. Alright, pretty incredible to get 3 tigers, but their names were Nefertiti, Sumati, and Aragon, so very cool. And then they reached a situation where they didn't feel like it was responsible on their part to retain ownership of this particular male chimp. Alright, he was 35 years old, his name was Tarzan. I'd seen him a number of times before, and his fellow housing mate ended up actually dying a number of years previously, and so he was kind of left on his own, and being on your own and being a near human kind of sentient being, it can really plague on your mentality. Alright, you can get very, very lonely, very depressed, just like a human would. And honestly, these chimps are just so close to being human, it's not even funny. So Black Pine decided it was best, even though their slogan is for the rest of their lives, they decided to make an exception in this case because, well, chimps are 98% similar to humans as far as their DNA is concerned. Roughly 98, some factors say about 95, other things say about 99. We'll just say 97, 98%, whatever. But very, very close to us. And so what they did was they donated Tarzan to Save the Chimps. It's a foundation in Florida where they do have a great chimpanzee sanctuary, and they can adequately take care of Tarzan in that location. So hopefully that will result in a much better life for him, and he'll come out on top from that whole exchange. So that's a story about Black Pine. Some definitely some new animals. We did have a few deaths, a couple relocations, but yeah, so definitely some changes at Black Pine this past year. Pretty incredible. Fort Wayne Children's Zoo, a bit of a different story. A little difficult for me to find information on some of the deaths or losses or moves on their part. I'm not entirely sure they disclose all the information as readily or as willingly as Black Pine was. So I'm not entirely sure what the story is there on that end, but what I will say is that there have been a lot of other changes regarding some of the new animals. Okay, I at least was able to find some information on that. To start with, we have a very interestingly named bird, Jarvis. He's actually a male buff-crested bustard bird found in the African Adventure. So you can see him there. We also had Blue, a male African black-footed penguin. He was actually born this year, but we had another one that people weren't able to see until this season because they were born at the end of last year, and that was a female penguin by the name of Echo. So new visitors to the zoo this year were finally able to see both these baby penguins, Blue and Echo, if they went to see the penguin exhibit there. Additionally, we had 3 baby kangaroos, Joeys. Those were born. And then we had a baby crocodile skink and even a baby male swamp monkey. All right. So I did get to see the swamp monkey. Definitely was a big hit with people. People love seeing that creature. Very awkward, silly, and fun to watch. So I think I even got some pictures and footage of him maybe. So that was fun to see. And then we have the renovations that are going on in the zoo. Okay, I don't know if you've been to the Australian Adventure this year, but they definitely started renovating that place pretty heavily. They included a reptile house, which I thought was great. Love seeing the reptile houses. In there, they actually added some knob-tailed geckos, as well as a Woma python, along with some other little beasties there. They also added a couple aviaries there that included Gala cockatoos, and the straw-necked ibises. So very cool. Added some things there. And then they actually had a 2-year-old giraffe join last winter, which once again wasn't able to be seen until this season, by the name of Faye. Okay, very cute little reticulated giraffe, a female, and she was also interesting to watch and see at the zoo, just comparing her size to the other very large adult giraffes there. So that was kind of cool. So definitely some new things at the zoos this year. Always love seeing that, love paying attention to that, and love making a yearly round to the zoos and parks just to see some of these new creatures I'd never gotten to see before. And always a great opportunity to get out there and get some pictures, some great pictures of some of these animals, and take them home and show your family and friends. Very cool. Now, another topic I'd like to kind of go off on real quick before I hit the celebrity stuff is some of the changes that are happening at one of our key institutions here in Fort Wayne. All right. So there's been a lot of chaos, a lot of rumors flying around regarding this, and so I'd like to kind of go back to this topic. I know I've covered this once before briefly, but we're going to kind of cover it again right now because a lot of these changes that were proposed many months ago are now coming into fruition and being carried out in basically the exact same way that we thought they were going to. So a little disappointing from that perspective to see that not much has changed in the 6 months or so since I last covered this. All right, but at IPFW, it's been a crazy time this year. It's been something to really aggravate and confuse not only the students but also the faculty at IPFW. And so a lot of different things are occurring as far as changing the university, what it stands for, what kind of students it's catering to, and what kind of demographic it's really targeting. And so we're really going to kind of break this down and talk about it a bit, because I think it's very, very important with such a comprehensive university here in town. It's important to spend some time on this and show how it's falling from that mark. It's no longer going to be a comprehensive university. It's tailoring itself into a niche. I feel like that's a very bad decision. I feel like that's a loss for Fort Wayne. But anyway, we'll sit here and we'll talk about some of those changes for our next few minutes here. To start with, the most concerning part for the students is at IPFW, Indiana University, Purdue University of Fort Wayne, IPFW is going to be eliminating a number of different programs. Okay, not just programs, but majors, departments, things like that. Okay, it's going to be targeting some big things. All right. Now, to be fair, it will be consolidating some of these things into other programs, other departments. But yeah, going to be a lot of changes happening here. Most notably, the degrees that they're getting rid of are for geology, philosophy, women's studies, French, and German. Kind of interesting that all of those seem to be kind of more science related or more liberal arts kind of things. So a little interesting that seems kind of targeted in that way. As far as majors that are being eliminated, we have pre-dentistry majors, both the chemistry and the biology, being eliminated. Pre-medicine, for the chemistry side of things. A number of math majors are being done away with entirely, as far as the computing, business, and statistics math majors. We also have legal studies and public management majors being done with as well. Teaching programs that are going to be gotten rid of include biology, chemistry, French, German, Spanish, and physics. A little interesting, I think, because I'm a biology teacher, so I'm a little disappointed to see those programs go. I mean, I was kind of under the impression that we needed as many STEM teachers as possible. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And that biology teachers were among the higher end of the most desired teachers in those fields. So it's interesting for me to look at that and see that those teaching positions, those teaching programs are being done away with. Disappointing to me. Number of undergrad programs are suspended, including environmental geology and environmental policy. We also have a number of graduate programs being suspended, including the Doctorate of Nursing Practice. A little strange given that healthcare is our number one sector here, close to, if not the number one sector here in Fort Wayne. We also have the Applied Math Operations Research being done away with, the Math Applied Statistics Certificate, as well as the Masters of Math. All graduate programs for those are being eliminated. We also have a number of departments that are being eliminated, including the Geology, Philosophy, and Women's Studies. And then we're going to go ahead and merge some departments. Okay, so going to take Anthropology and merge it together with Sociology. We're going to take Manufacturing and Construction Engineering Technology, merge that with Computer, Electrical, and Information Technology. So matching up the MCET with the CEIT, essentially. And then we're going to merge the visual with the performing and the fine arts. Okay, so all those are going to kind of merge together as well. Which other universities do similar things with that regard, so that actually doesn't surprise me. Now, that's as far as the student level is most concerned. Okay, that's where a lot of students are seeing concern. Obviously, the teachers for some of these fields are concerned, and we'll come back around to talking about them here in a second. But for the most part, that's where a lot of people's concern is with those changes, those proposed eliminations and consolidations. as far as how the actual programs are run. Secondary to that, we see another measure that's being passed through, where we are taking IPFW and physically splitting it. Okay. Indiana University and Purdue University have reached the end of the line, and they need a divorce. This marriage just isn't working for them, and they really don't see much need to continue as a single, unified, comprehensive university. So they're going to split off. We're going to have Fort Wayne essentially become Purdue University of Fort Wayne. Going to have Indiana University become essentially Indiana University Fort Wayne, or whatever they decide to do with the names. But we're just guessing based on other previous names. What's going to happen with the programs, after all the changes that I just mentioned, once we get all those changes finalized, departments merged, cut, whatever, then what we're going to do is we're going to take all the remaining health or medical or nursing or dental types of fields and throw them to IU. Okay, so they're going to take what they currently have, which is the medical school they have on campus, and then they're going to get a health science center as well. I'm guessing they're just going to appropriate one of the buildings that's currently on Purdue campus and basically just give that to IU. That's what I would assume. I wouldn't assume they would build a whole new building. That seems like a waste. But anyway, so they're going to take all the medical stuff, go to IU. That will be how we'll handle that. Purdue, on the other hand, what Purdue's going to do is going to basically take everything else. Okay, anything that's not medical, anything that's not nursing, all that is going to go to Purdue. And you'll be able to get a degree conferred from Purdue at that point. Now, from what I've seen, okay, I'm not the most knowledgeable on this topic, but I have been trying to keep up on it as much as possible. From what I saw, it seems that a lot of this stuff was driven by Purdue. Because really, for the most part, Purdue was already running most of IPFW anyway. IU only had a residual interest because of their med center being up here. As such, that's kind of how the split went. That's why Purdue got most everything and just gave all the health stuff to IU, because that's kind of the way it was running anyway. So it comes down to deciding making these decisions on how to split, what programs to cut, and all this. It really all came down to the Purdue trustees. Okay, it was the trustee board that made all these votes and took this preliminary information that was gathered from these two different reports, two different things. The LSA report, which was the Legislative Services Agency report, as well as the University Strategic Alignment Process, or USAP report. These reports were kind of supposed to be the first step in kind of gauging what the economics of the university were, what the successes were, trying to get a broad view on what works and what doesn't work, and to try to start the conversation of, well, what are some ways that we can start optimizing performance, making some cuts, consolidating, whatever, to save costs. Alright, so it really came down to those two reports. And initially, like I said, about 6 months ago or so, we were told that these reports were being treated separately. Separately for two completely separate reasons, because one was really all about aligning the university with the long-term plan. The other one was really looking at the feasibility of IU and Purdue working together to form IPFW. As such, it was no surprise to me, because I knew they were doing it the entire time, but these Purdue trustees integrated the two reports and took them at exactly face value. Which, honestly, even at face value, these reports were minimally informative. Okay, really, the reports kind of outlined their own weaknesses by not displaying highly specific data. Okay, these were very, very crude reports. They were pretty much first-run kind of reports. Right? very preliminary information that wasn't terribly specific. Okay, so it might give you the economics of a department, but it sure didn't have the specificity needed to distinguish funds coming in or going out of specific programs or majors. It didn't have that level of detail at all. Okay, and yet you see all these programs and majors being eliminated or consolidated, even though clearly these reports didn't have that information in them. Didn't have the information that you would need to make that assertion that these programs and majors needed to go, that they were being wasted monetarily, so to speak, or wasteful monetarily speaking. So, a little surprising to me that they actually followed through with exactly what I thought they would do, because I'm sorry, from my perspective, they're a bunch of ignorant people. And I've dealt with ignorant people like that in power, to where you give them something and you try to make sure that they understand that what you're giving them is preliminary. It's just a glaze off the top. And they are so proactive in their nature and in their thinking that they will go ahead and act on whatever they see anyway, or whatever they think anyway, regardless of whatever they're doing, and as far as whether that's the appropriate action to take. They are just so proactive. They just love doing things, to do them, to show that they're doing something, even though what they're doing has nothing to do with what they were just shown. And in fact, in some ways, it's very contrary to what they were just shown. It's actually quite astounding to me, the nature of these people that serve on these boards and in upper administrative positions. I don't understand it. I mean, I could never see myself acting like that, because I like to read something. I like to actually see what I'm looking at and draw adequate conclusions from it, as opposed to drawing my own conclusions based on no real specific data. So always kind of boggles my mind. But anyway, so we have the Purdue trustees to thank for this, especially since, like I said, over the past 6 months they have not listened to anybody regarding how much a lot of this is a bad idea. They haven't listened to the students, they haven't listened to the faculty, they haven't listened to community members. They don't listen to anyone but themselves. That's how they got the position that they're in. Okay. Like I said, I know these proactive people. They don't listen to anyone. They love being there and they love doing, but they do not cater to others at all. So it's barking up a tree that doesn't move. Okay, it just doesn't go anywhere. Anyway, it's kind of interesting to see how the changes that they're implementing were really supposed to be part of this phased, multi-year approach that's supposed to really involve further study and further analysis to get that specific data that I mentioned. That's what these reports were supposed to do. They're supposed to be part of this like 10-year process to try to align the university in the direction that it needs to go. That's not what ended up happening. Okay. This phased multi-year approach was completely discarded entirely, and they just said, hey, let's do some things right now. Boom. Doing things right now. And if you'll notice, these changes are all centered around a select few things in a couple different departments. And it starts asking the question, why is it so directed? If this is truly a comprehensive kind of measure that's meant to bring finances under control over the next umpteen years, why is it such a directed measure? Why is it so directed at languages? Why is it so directed at science? And yet nothing else is affected. Why is that? That doesn't make any sense to me. What especially doesn't make any sense is how when you look at a number of these programs and look at the finances of these programs, okay, because some of these programs we have involved the actual people in charge of these programs and asked them their own finances, and they have provided them. And a number of these programs pay for themselves and then some. So how is it that these trustees are trying to say that these cuts are being made, these consolidations are being made to save $200,000 a year, when a number of these programs pay for themselves and actually profit the university. That just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all, actually. Especially when you consider if cuts are being made, why are they not across the board? Why is it just these few language and philosophy and science programs that are affected? There are countless other fields that you can target. Why just those? Why my fields, of all places? So, some very interesting questions are being asked here. And nobody's really giving any answers. Any good answers at all. Okay. So, very, very concerning some of these changes that are being made at IPFW, because it's clear that a lot of this is political. It has nothing to do with data. And has nothing to do with a multi-year approach to align the university's goals and bring their budget under control. Has nothing to do with that. Has to do with a bunch of trustees that love sitting there and acting on preliminary information just to say that they're actually acting on something and doing something, even though what they're doing isn't appropriate, isn't in line with the university's goals, and isn't in any way related to the data that they were given. So very, very interesting to me to see these proactive people. Just unbelievable. And if you look at it, athletics, we love looking at student athletics, and guess what? They were completely untouched by any of this stuff. And in fact, there was a particular men's basketball coach, John Kaufman, who was signed on to a renewal contract here to continue being the men's basketball coach. And let me just give you an idea of how his contract is laid out here. Okay. Start with, he's being paid $120,000 for the school year 2016 to 2017. So the one that we're currently in, he'll be paid $120K. All right, cool. By 2020, that school year, 20 to 21, he's going to be paid $190K. That's $70K of an increase in 4 years. Anybody else experience a $70K raise in 4 years? Anybody else? That seems kind of interesting to me. Especially since what he'll be getting paid in 2020 is essentially what the university is professing to save by cutting these numerous programs and departments and majors. That's how much they're professing to save, is his yearly salary 4 years from now. That's a little odd for me, especially seeing that kind of heavy scaling up over time. What's even more concerning is that that's just his base salary. Okay, that's what he's guaranteed. All right, he makes it to the NCAA. He gets a $20,000 bonus for each time he appears in those tournaments, and each time he wins in one of those tournaments. So if he appears in a game, NCAA game, and wins in the game, he gets an additional $40,000. And you're telling me that that's okay, that's appropriate, that is so much better to have than all these other majors and programs and departments that you're eliminating right now? That's crazy to me. That's nonsense to me to think about that. But whatever. We can also consider how the president of Purdue University, the good old ex-governor Mitch Daniels, how he actually gets to enjoy a bonus this year. All right, that yearly Christmas bonus or whatever. Going back to one of the greatest movies this time of the year, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Going back to that Christmas bonus, man. Griswold got screwed over in that movie. Well, in real life, It's the little people that get screwed over. It's so that the higher-ups can enjoy a big bonus. Because guess what Mitch Daniels' bonus will be this year? $200,000. Huh. That's interesting. Okay. So your bonus is the same amount as your university is going to save by doing away with all these programs and departments. They're the same amount of money. That's a little selfish. I mean, you'd really rather have a Ferrari for Christmas than be able to provide a comprehensive education to the students of Fort Wayne at IPFW. That's a little selfish, I think. A little selfish. I'm very surprised with that move, actually. I mean, I don't know of many people that would actually go through with that, with a conscious bone in their body, and be fine with that. I mean, I would be inclined to do bad things to that car. Okay, provided he bought a car with the money, which he probably doesn't. Probably won't. But just saying, that's so corrupt. That's so horrible to think about. That you would rather have that money than provide the services for your students that, honestly, a lot of students actually kind of want and need. So, very disappointing to me. Through all of this, through months of causing an uproar, and actually since the announcement in the middle of October that the Women's Studies program is going to be cut, there's been a lot of uproar about it. Women's Studies in particular, but obviously all the departments that are being cut. But Women's Studies really generated the most traction. Okay, there was a lot of upheaval regarding the Women's Studies program. And you know what? That seems to be the only thing that caught anybody's eye. The only thing that actually moved for change in this whole pile of changes in IPFW. The Women's Studies managed to get through. Because on December 6th, we heard the news that the Women's Studies Department, along with 30 majors associated with it, was going to be reinstated and merged with the Political Science Department. Which is great because the Political Science Department is awesome on campus. You have the Andy Downs Center, which is a great place. Andy Downs was also very paramount, as well as the Women's Studies professor, Dr. Badia. She was also paramount in the whole process of garnering attention to all these changes and helping retain and restore some of these programs. And so, you know what? That's awesome. Dr. Badia actually succeeded in this, and it's really quite incredible. What a victory for her. That's awesome. Love to hear that something good came out of these months of protesting on the campus and having meetings where we sit down with professors and students and talk about some of these changes and some of their concerns. We at least had one good outcome from all of this. I love that I was able to be part of it. I was able to go and film some of their get-togethers, some of their sit-downs with the faculty, so we can get some of this information out there, some of these videos out there, and just inform people of what's going on in their own community with this comprehensive institution. And so I'm really happy that I was a part of that, and I would like to think that I at least had some sort of impact on getting the Women's Studies program saved amongst all this other stuff. So very cool, very exciting that will be retained within the university as far as having some sort of Women's Studies program, as well as some majors associated with it. Now the unfortunate part is that the secretary for the Women's Studies department, she will technically lose her job, but she is being offered another job on campus. So she is not outright getting fired, she's more just being moved to a different place. So as far as that's concerned, yeah, nobody lost their job, which is awesome. So definitely some crazy stuff going on with IPFW. We'll see what this year brings, because I'm sure the rest of the changes are probably just going to follow through. Amazing that we were able to say one thing, but we'll just have to wait and see. Wait and see what happens with IPFW, because now we're going to have to get used to calling it Indiana University Fort Wayne, or Purdue Fort Wayne, or something like that. So we'll see how things go in coming years. Next year in particular, where most of this is going to be enacted. So we'll see. Additionally, I wanted to talk about some celebrity type stuff. I really wanted to start on the local level. Okay, there is a local celebrity of sorts. Oh goodness, I didn't even mention the other one. I completely forgot. There's one that I actually knew of. I think he passed this year. Hans Sheridan. He was actually one of the supporters, and I want to say one of the co-founders, so to speak, of Rudy's Cigar Bar downtown, where I actually worked for a while, helping be a bartender as well as kind of an assistant manager type of person. So Hans was an awesome guy, very nice. He was a doctor actually, so I should call him Dr. Sheridan. But he had his hands in a lot of different stuff. Boys and Girls Club of Fort Wayne, where he also helped my boss at the time, Rudy, kind of get involved with that as well. But he had his hands in a lot of different things around town. Yeah, was a great guy. So it was sad to hear of him go this year. Otherwise, what I was really going to talk about was Mike's Car Wash. You've seen a number of those around town. You know, they seem to be a number of different locations here in town. You also happen to see another car wash, Crew Car Wash, in a number of places around town as well. And those both have a common ancestor. Back to 1948, where Mike's Car Wash was founded. And it was actually the first automated car wash in all of Indiana at that time. So pretty novel, pretty awesome. And this was founded by two guys. One was Joe, the other was his brother Ed, both Dom in last name. And unfortunately, Ed Dom, who is 86 years old, actually died in a car accident on US 33, I'm sorry, about 15 miles northwest of Fort Wayne. So he was driving his SUV about 11:15 a.m. in the morning, and his car sped up and went into the oncoming traffic lane, where he collided with a charter bus. There were 40 people on that bus or so. About 16 of them were injured and went to the hospital with minor injuries. But the bus driver, he was actually airlifted out. But as of this moment, he was in fair condition, last I heard. So no deaths on the charter bus side of things. But unfortunately, Ed did die, probably instantaneously upon colliding with that charter bus. Now, Ed was driving in his SUV with his dog, Bella, at the time, who also died in the car. So, unfortunately, the co-founder of Mike's Car Wash, recently deceased on December 22nd. So, just kind of humbling, because when you think about Mike's Car Wash, I mean, you think of it as kind of a Fort Wayne thing, but really, they have 41 different locations between Mike's and Crew Car Wash, because they actually split up back in 2014 between Mike's Car Wash and Crew Car Wash. But they have 41 different locations in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So I mean, it's really become an explosive kind of business, and so it's a little sad to see somebody go out that's so prevalent around town, so to speak, with his business. As far as national celebrities, we did have a few come through town. Two of them that I know of, just because my friends got to see them, got to interact with them. when they came through town was Jay Leno. He actually came to perform at the Embassy Theater. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to see that. But before he went on to perform at 7:30 on March 3rd, he actually got a carry-out lunch from none other than Fort Wayne's famous Coney Island. So he actually stopped in there about 2 p.m., ordered 2 hot dogs with ketchup, and I guess took him back to his room or whatever. So kind of crazy that he was there. We also had Bill Clinton, who came in town to, of course, try to speak on behalf of his wife, who was running for president. And this was back on April 30th. And before he actually went to give his talk at the McMillan Park Community Center, he stopped by Pint and Slice and Dash Inn. Visit with people, get some selfies taken, and yeah, basically hang with people. And that was so cool. So cool. Love hearing about that kind of thing. You know. And honestly, I was surprised that not more people showed up to watch him talk at the McMillan Center. But I mean, even for that kind of place, I mean, that place was packed. It's just that still very small compared to packing the Coliseum like what Trump did. And I think that had some influence on Trump winning in the presidential race, just seeing the kinds of crowds that he could bring out compared to Bill Clinton. So, I don't know. But I'm sure there were a number of other celebrities that stopped by in town, but those are 2 that I knew of because 2 of my friends got to see and interact with those people, those celebrities directly when they came out to town. Now, we can go on to the sad part of it, talking about celebrities. This year in particular has been a great year for death, so to speak, when it comes to some of our old, classic, beloved celebrities. I mean, I'm not normally one to be so starstruck and obsess over celebrities, but there have definitely been some great celebrities that have passed this year, and I wanted to just kind of go over some of them. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of time here, so I'll go over as many as I can in our remaining 5 minutes or so that we have here. I'm just going to kind of go over it chronologically on some of my favorites. Now, obviously, there were a lot of celebrities that passed, so I'm just going to lock on some of my favorites and some of the ones that I think are some of the most influential, at least as far as my life and in culture and such. So starting at the beginning of the year, we have January 10th being the date that the legendary David Bowie died at the ripe old age of 69, because you're a rock star, and I'm sorry, he was a crazy, very strange kind of guy, and really was just on the leading edge of so much. It was really impressive how much he accomplished and how much paths he just kind of trailblazed for other people to follow in his footsteps. Just seemed like a crazy guy. You know, obviously I know him because I'm kind of a movie buff. I know him from his involvement in Labyrinth. That was a crazy little magical 80s movie, I think it was. So I know him from his role in that as the big bad guy. But you know, he was suffering from liver cancer for the previous 18 months, and you know, that was just kind of what did him in. You know, you can only battle with cancer for so long until it takes you. So that's kind of what claimed him. Now, in Bowie's case, see, you'll notice that a lot of these celebrity deaths are kind of surprising. But in Bowie's case, he knew it was coming. Okay, he was told for the past year that he was going to die of that liver cancer, that it was going to take him. And so he just went on living life day to day and trying to do as much as he could. Just pound out as much stuff as possible before he succumbed. And you know what? He was incredibly successful in that. He managed to release his last album, Black Star, 2 days before he died. And what's crazy is that if you look at one of the songs in that album, the lyrics to one of those songs is, "Look up here, I'm in heaven." Now, obviously, I'm not a religious person at all, but that's still rather touching to see that he foresaw his own death is coming sooner rather than later, and actually kind of built in those lyrics into his song. Sorry, I think I'm getting sick at the moment. Another famous person who is also near and dear to my heart was Alan Rickman. Alright, if you know of Alan Rickman, he actually died at the age of 69 as well. This was on February 3rd, and he was, gosh, he was a lot of things. You know, he was a bad guy in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, the Sheriff of Nottingham, I believe. And, I mean, he was really renowned in recent years for being Professor Severus Snape on Harry Potter. You know, most recently he served a role in Eye in the Sky, which I haven't gotten to see. I guess it's about drones. Really the one that I got to see that he voice acted in was Alice Through the Looking Glass. So, the second installment in the Alice in Wonderland Tim Burton series. I loved hearing him in that because, honestly, when he died, I wasn't sure if he'd gotten to voice his character in that movie. And fortunately enough, he was able to voice his character before he died. And so, really, those two movies were his last roles. And so he was also just kind of pounding out that stuff as quickly as possible. Now, unfortunately, he also succumbed to cancer. In his case, it was pancreatic cancer, which is typically a much more dire diagnosis than liver cancer. Reasoning for that is that typically by the time we catch pancreatic cancer, it is incredibly advanced by that stage. And so your diagnosis is pretty grim at that point. So he actually was only, you know, as far as we knew anyway, battling that cancer for 5 months. Okay, and that was only because he had gotten a stroke and he went in and had it, you know, undergone some tests by the doctor, and that's when they found the pancreatic cancer. So something so simple as a stroke and going in for the diagnosis for that really shined him on to the fact that he had that pancreatic cancer. So, very disappointing there. A lot of very sad memes on Facebook regarding that one. So, I actually think we'll stop there. I think that's all the time we have here. So, we'll continue with some of the other celebrity deaths of 2017 or 2016 next time. If you're interested in catching any of our other Based on Facts episodes, simply look us up. You can look us up on Facebook or YouTube just by typing in Based on Facts in the search bar. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me, and have a great one. Have a great New Year's, I should say. Have a great New Year's.